welcome to another weekly update. Today I am in Denver, Colorado for the Comms vNext conference, which starts tomorrow, which is kind of very exciting. So that's where I am right now. I'm in the hotel where the conference is taking place, and like I say, it starts tomorrow. It's a two-day event, and it's a really good chance to catch up with lots of people from around the world, both MVPs, partners, customers, users, really all focused in on using Microsoft Teams and related kind of technology. So it's been great to catch up with lots of people the last couple of days I've been here, but yeah, very much looking forward to the conference tomorrow. All right, let's get into things that have happened this week. And the first thing I want to tell you about is a blog post that I did off the back of my last weekly update, talking about some big changes coming to Microsoft Graph and Microsoft Graph billing. So if you were on the last weekly update, you will probably you know most of this stuff already, but just to make sure, there's a full write-up I did of a blog post write-up that's got all of the details of what you need to do if you're going to be impacted by these billing changes which are coming into Microsoft Graph, and will impact you if you use change notifications, if you use the export APIs. There's a couple of other use cases. Stuff is coming in July. And if you don't do anything, if you haven't got anything set up for this, you are going to fall over into evaluation mode, which means you are going to be limited quite severely on how much data you can export and how many change notifications you're going to get in that process. So all of the detail on what you need to do is in this blog post around whether you're going to be impacted or not, and if you are impacted, what you should do about it to mitigate all of that. So look out for that. That blog post, I'll put a link in the notes as well. Something else that's coming up, another breaking change that again I'm going to write up as a blog post, but I'm giving you all a little bit of early access to on the weekly update, because I've only just found out myself, is a change to the callRecords API, the callRecords change notification, also in Microsoft Graph. This is how you get told about new information about calls and meetings in real time. As the call or the meeting ends, Microsoft will send you, via change notifications, will send you a payload of data around that meeting or that call. And yeah, that's been around for a while. It will be impacted by the thing I just talked about as well. So it will be billed and chargeable. But there's going to be a change to the OData property that is currently being used. So this is going to be a breaking change because, but they're doing it in stages to try and not be too breaking. And so this is, if you look at a payload of that data as it comes in, and look at that data payload, one of the properties will be OData, because it's kind of built on the OData standard, and the field names are changing to be more in line with kind of standard OData field names, where you've got the @ sign and then it says OData and then a dot and then the property name. So more in line with everywhere else in Graph, but it is going to break stuff because that isn't how it is at the moment. And so if you're relying on that, if you're relying on looking at those OData properties, then you are going to have to do something. So right now, from a few days ago, they're running both side by side. So both types of OData property, the old and the new, are in all the payloads right now. So that's useful. So you've got a changeover period. The changeover period is 6 months. I'm just looking at my laptop here. In late October this year, so around 6 months away, they are going to turn off the old way of doing it, and so you're just going to have the new property type. So if you basically, the thing you need to do is go and see if you're using the callRecords API, and you probably know, especially if you've just been watching last week's and the stuff I've just been talking about, you've got a good way of finding out if you're using the callRecords API, because you need to know that anyway to know how you're going to pay for it in the future. Whilst you're there, go and find out if you are directly referencing these OData property types. You might not be, but you may be. And if you are, then you need to go and update to use the new style of referencing those property types, and you need to do all of that before October, because in October they're going to kind of turn that stuff off, and so it is going to break any existing applications. So, couple of big breaking changes around Microsoft Graph change notifications to be aware of there. And one more thing I want to tell you about is around Azure Communication Services. And there's a new public preview API This is all about being able to raise your hand in meetings. This has been a really common request in Azure Communication Services. It's something that you can do in Teams, obviously being able to raise hand, and people want it in Azure Communication Services makes complete sense. And because Azure Communication Services and Teams share the same fundamental back end for calls and meetings, the ACS team have been able to bring exactly this functionality to ACS, which is really nice. It's been implemented at the API level. So in your Azure Communication Services clients, you'll be able to raise hand. You make a API call to raise a hand. You'll be able to get a notification of when those hands have been raised as well, so you can display them in the client. I think in the fullness of time, you'll see this roll out to all of the components as well, and the UI library that Azure Communication Services have. So depending on how much you want to jump on this straight away, if you really want to build this in, you've got a custom application, you want to build this in now, there is a public preview, so you can kind of go and do that. If you would quite like this, but you're just using the composite components, I think if you hang on a while, you'll see it start to show up, and you'll kind of get it anyway, and you won't really have to do any work. I don't think it will just show up in those components if you keep them updated. But this is kind of good to see. Like I say, it's been asked for a while, and it's good to see it kind of come and arrive. There's going to be events for hand lowered as well as hand raised, so you can really keep that UI up to date. And it's API driven, so it might not even be a UI. You might want to build it into some other event. It might be interesting to see. One of the things about being in a conference hotel, I don't know if you heard that, but one of the things about being in a conference hotel the day before a conference is that it's part hotel, part building site, as everybody brings all their stuff in and sets it up. I might go on a little wander in a minute and see if I can see anything interesting. But so the new events that you get for Azure Communication Services hand raising are not only raising hands but also lowering hands. I think it's going to be interesting to see if people use hands maybe as a way of signifying other kind of events as well. I don't know, it'd be interesting to use it for polling maybe. You've got that kind of ability to programmatically raise a lot of hands or lower a lot of hands, as well as get all the events of doing that. You can raise all hands and lower all hands, apparently as API calls. You can't raise all hands, you can lower all hands as an API call, and you can list which hands have been raised. One interesting thing which I will have to wait to see, because I haven't tried this, is whether or not you can get the order of the hand raising as well. That's been an interesting addition for Microsoft Teams recently, to get the order of raised hands. And that's quite a useful thing, obviously, if you're trying to run a Q&A session that's very busy, and you want to kind of be fair about it. You'd like to be able to hit people's hands raising in the right order. All right, those are all the big changes that I can find in the Microsoft Teams, Microsoft Graph development world over the past week or so. If I've missed anything, let me know. But I think I'm going to pick up lots of fun information over the next couple of days at Comms vNext. If you're at Comms vNext, please come and say hello. It'd be great to see you. And yeah, whatever it is you're doing this week, if you're at Comms vNext, have a great one. It's going to be fantastic. If you're not, then have a great week anyway. And I will speak to you all again next week.